The fishing is heating up in Arkansas. Today, you'll learn how to stock your pond and how not to. We've also got a First Fish segment with someone who has accomplished a lot in life, and he's about to add angler to his impressive resume. We're also going hiking in Northwest Arkansas. It's all on this episode of Arkansas's Great Outdoors. One of my favorite things to do is to bring the love of fishing to newcomers. Now, one of the regular segments in this show is called First Fish, where we bring people onto this episode to catch their first ever fish on camera. Today, we've got Bob Cahoon, a Chicago native who has experienced a lot in life. He's about to catch his first fish times 3. We've got Bob Cahoon with us here. Now, Bob, you have done a lot of things in life, but you haven't caught a fish yet, right?
I have not, no.
So this
No
is a
fish.
very important check mark for you.
It absolutely is.
You've lived a lot of different places across both oceans.
Correct, yeah.
And now you're here in Arkansas. What are you doing here?
Working with about 200 missionaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are volunteering your time now.
We are.
You're here for how long?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
3 years of volunteer service to help spread the word of the gospel.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, about half the apostles were fishermen.
They sure were.
So you got
I'm not an apostle.
this.
There you go.
Not yet, but this might help.
I'm trying to figure out were there any apostles that were golfers.
You know, I bet there definitely were. There's a lot of things you can tie in there.
Okay.
So Bob is an avid golfer, and we're going to talk about some of the similarities between golf and fishing as we go through the
Okay,
day.
very good.
Okay. The first thing I'd like to do, let's do a little casting lesson.
Okay.
Okay. So what we've got right here, we've got just kind of your basic spinning reel. So can you feel a little bit of the whipping action
Absolutely.
there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Little like a driver.
Okay, a little like a
There you
driver.
go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would be like a stiff action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just for comparison, I want you to take this, which is our little light that we use to run on the boat at night, and do the same thing.
Little,
See?
little rigid.
A little rigid,
Yeah, little
yes.
rigid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is this rod, when it flexes, it does 2 things for you
Okay.
as a fisherman. Part 1 is when you're casting, it gives you that whipping action, which allows you to cast it farther.
Yeah.
Part 2, this is the important part, when you actually hook onto a fish, that flex allows that hook to stay in the fish's mouth.
Gotcha.
Because otherwise, if it was stiff like that,
Okay.
you wouldn't be able to keep the pressure applied on the fish, and the fish could just spit it out, or it'd be a lot more able to do that.
Very good. Okay.
So we're going to cast with that and not
Okay,
that.
okay,
All right.
very good.
And so what we'll do now is we're going to rig you up with a minnow.
Okay.
All right. Put your finger
Okay.
on the line
Okay.
like this.
Yep.
And then now that you've got that line secure, we flip the bail. Just for grins, let go with your finger and see what happens.
That'll drop.
There, so it drops like that. So that's
Okay.
what we're doing.
Okay.
And so we'll reel that up, and then you kind of bring it up to where the line is at its closest point to the rod. That's the easiest way to grab it with your finger.
Okay.
And let her go. Just like that. So
Okay.
yeah, then close the bail now, and now
Okay.
you can retrieve as soon as a fish grabs
Okay.
it.
Gotcha.
So what you do is you're watching that bobber,
Yep.
and a couple of things will happen. If the minnow starts to get a little nervous, the bobber will move a little bit, and that's a good sign, because if the minnow's nervous,
He's got somebody coming
that
at him.
means there's a predator coming. When the bobber gets pulled all the way under the water, now it's game on, and then you set the hook. And just set the hook is, all you do is you just take that fishing rod and move it, just get it to 12 o'clock,
Okay.
just like that.
All right.
We'll get back to Bob in just a moment. First, let's hit the hiking trails with Mallory Lindsay from Bad Boy Mowers.
When exploring the great outdoors, safety is our #1 priority. So having a trail buddy is ideal, but if you have to go solo, make sure you text a friend or a family member your location and how long you'll be outdoors. In addition to texting, it's always a good idea to put your itinerary in your glove compartment. That way, if any unfortunate events happen and you need a search and rescue team to come find you, they have a good starting point.
As the weather heats up, so also is the fishing. It's a good time to get that boat ready. Here's a great tip from our friends at H2O Sports and Marine in Sherwood. All right, we've got Herb from H2O Sports and Marine here with us, and a lot of guys don't like to fish when the temperature drops at all. And so what ends up happening is about the time springtime comes around, they haven't used their boat for 4 or 5 months. What do we need to be aware of for the first time we crank it up in springtime?
Well, that's a great question, because that's the average fisherman in this state. They're hunting and they're doing everything else, so the boat's just been setting. The number one thing is definitely you want to check the battery. If you do have a lot of people have them, call them elephant ears, that we're able to put on the motor and be able to feed it water, where you're able to start it and let it run a little bit. The biggest problem we've been seeing, though, is fuel. Fuel has been a big issue, because if it sits for a long time and you've got that removable tank, you can test it, obviously, by pouring it in something clear and see the difference between the fuel and the water. Big thing we've been seeing is fuel lines. You need to go back there and look at your fuel line on your engine. Your primer bulb, if it's all cracked up, and then you see that the hose is cracked up, that's basically from either sitting outside or just getting old. It's a simple, easy fix, but if you can't feed it fuel, she isn't gonna run, for sure. I always like to go through a quick check of hitting switches. What I mean by hitting switches, I wanna make sure that my nav lights are still good. I want to make sure that my bilge pump works for sure, and I want to make sure my live well pumps work, which you can hear them run. All you have to do is just hit the switch to turn them on themselves, and you can go to the back of the boat and open up the compartment, and you can hear the whistle of the pumps themselves, because that's kind of important. The last thing you want to do is get out on the water, and you can't put water in a live well, or if you have minnows you're fishing with or anything like that, or get water out with the bilge.
Okay, so that's some good tips for you guys. If you're bringing the boat out for the first time in a few months, pay attention to this, and also bring it into a dealership. H2O Sports and Marine will help take care of your boat and get you that annual maintenance so everything runs smoothly. You can spend your time catching fish instead of having to flag somebody down.
Yeah, and get to us early, because then we're able to get you out early for sure before the season really gets cranked up. Thanks again.
When Arkansas's Great Outdoors returns, we'll see how great fishing ponds are put together, and we'll also see Bob Cahoon catch his first fish and then some. Arkansas's Great Outdoors is brought to you by Bad Boy Mowers, mow with an attitude, by H2O Marine, and by Archer's Advantage.
Where haven't we gone? What hasn't been done? What's still left to be discovered and possible beyond the horizon? How can we continue pushing limits, breaking boundaries, and leading the way? At Bad Boy, it's not just about finding the answers, it's about the pursuit. Bad Boy, mow with an attitude.
We'd love to feature your photos on Arkansas's Great Outdoors. Just email them to photos@arkansasgreatoutdoors.com. We'd love to see how you see Arkansas. Let's talk healthy waters. There are all kinds of rivers and streams and ponds all over Arkansas. Now, some can be healthy, some can be a bit stale. It all depends on what you do with them. J.M. Malone and Sons in Lone Oak can help, and here's how they do it. J.M. Malone & Son is different from most of the fish farmers featured in this show. They focus primarily on stocking your ponds with the right fish to get the results you want.
When stocking a new pond, the first thing you have to decide is, what do you want to fish for? And you basically have a few choices. You've got catfish, which is great if you like catfish, but you can't raise a lot of big bass in a catfish pond. So your second choice is your typical bass bluegill pond, where you're going to get catchable bluegill and catchable bass. Doesn't go well for catfish. Your third option, of course, is trophy bass. And this is where we crowd the bluegill, give the bass all the room in the world, and you effectively get 8-pound bass and maybe some subpar bluegill, but you are after the 8-pound bass anyway. So on day one, before you stock your pond, really think about what you want to catch, because that's going to determine exactly what you put in it and what proportion of each kind of fish you put to each other in that pond. If you change the ratio of bass to bluegill, you either get big bluegill or big bass. So on day one, you need to set your recipe for success based on how many fish you stock and what ratio. If you were to catch the trophy bass of all trophy bass out in the wild, your local river or lake, I urge you not to bring it back to your personal pond. Ponds are very small environments. Like I said before, you have to establish the right ratio of predator and prey. If you had a new pond and you caught that trophy bass of a lifetime and put him in your new pond, you would never be able to establish the forage to feed him. He would probably starve to death. Or you would go bankrupt trying to establish the forage base to feed him. When you stock a pond, it's important to start with the forage fish first, minnows and bluegill, typically in the fall, and then you come back in June and stock your bass. That way your forage base, like a pyramid, has had time to expand. To support that bass is going to be at the top of that food pyramid. Also, taking bass from the wild can introduce diseases you don't want. There are many parasites that utilize birds and snails and fish all as hosts. They're called grubs. And if you ever cut open a fillet of a crappie or bass and you got black specks or white specks or little red worms, that's because of a grub that came from a bird or a snail. And the surest way to get one in your pond is to go catch one out of the wild and put them in your pond.
As you just heard, the right way and the wrong way is the difference between that dream pond or an expensive frustration. J.M. Malone & Son is a national leader in this part of fish farming. Exhibit A is the Southern Specklebelly Brim.
So here we have a Southern Specklebelly Brim. This is a new fish raised by Malone's, exclusive to Malone's. Very exciting new hybrid. 99% plus males. They grow very fast, they get very big, very easy to catch. So the current hybrid bluegill that you can buy at most places to stock your pond, it's a good fish, but it uses a green sunfish as a parent, and you get 85% males. So while you can raise big fish, eventually you're going to have some reproduction, and eventually you have to drain your pond and start over. So we were looking for something a little more longer term. So if your goal is to raise big brim, it's all about numbers of fish in your pond. If you were to put in 100 regular bluegill that were 50-50 male and female, they're going to reproduce and you're going to have hundreds of thousands of babies. That's hundreds of thousands of males competing with those 100 fish you put in there that you wanted to get big. We're talking about 99% males. For every 100 you put in, you might get 1 or 2 offspring. So that's that much more food available for that 100 fish that you put in that you want to grow big. When it comes to pond stocking, it's about space, time, and food.
Along with the Southern Specklebelly, the folks at Malone's grow a lot of popular species, including catfish, hybrid crappie, and of course the largemouth bass. It starts in the hatchery, matures in the ponds, and ends up in trucks headed all over America. If you would like customized advice for your pond, check them out at jmmaloneandson.com. When Arkansas's Great Outdoors returns, Bob Cahoon becomes Arkansas's newest angler. Arkansas's Great Outdoors is brought to you by Bad Boy Mowers, mow with an attitude, by H2O Marine, and by Archer's Advantage.
The best leaders don't just forge ahead, they adjust. Bad Boy Mowers has made adjustments at every turn, including our revolutionary 3-link suspension. Built tough and designed for superior performance and speed. Adjust the seat, handles, and pedals however you want. And as for Bad Boy's rebellious spirit, well, that hasn't adjusted at all. Bad Boy, mow with an attitude.
Let's get back to Bob. Now, we are on a quest for some great tasting Arkansas crappie, and the dinner bell is about to ring. Okay, so here we're going to try something else.
Okay.
Bring the rod tip down almost like you're pointing it at the bait, and then reel up the slack.
Gotcha.
And then just
Gotcha.
move it. You just want that bobber to come towards you about a foot. And what that does, look at there, see that? Okay, there you go. Ah! Look here, keep reeling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay.
We got us a world-class crappie right there. Okay.
Hey.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are a fisherman,
Yeah, you
just like the apostles of old.
Yes, I'll say.
That's world class right there. That is a good sized crappie. It's the best tasting freshwater fish. This stuff tastes good. Crappie tastes good.
Beautiful.
That's going to be a good tasting piece of fish.
Oh, that's awesome. Well done, Coach.
Okay,
Yeah.
all righty.
Awesome. Very good.
And bring that arm straight to the camera so it looks like it's 4 feet.
That's it. Yeah,
Look at
there
that.
you go.
It's all the way
That's
from
it.
his head to his
That's
torso. That's a huge crappie.
That's it. Way. There you go. Seriously. You stop at what?
Yeah, that's no. We got a lot of mouths to feed tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that a par or a birdie?
That's
a
right, yeah.
fishy.
That's a fishy. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Let's put another minnow on. The reason why you want to keep your rod tip down, it would be like
Yeah.
putting the driver right behind the ball with no backswing.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to give that minnow one more shot, and then we're going to
All right.
fire him.
Back over that way.
right back over there,
Okay.
even a little bit deeper.
Okay.
There you go. Look at that. Uh-huh. So pull it towards you about a foot. Let's just make sure we're not hung up.
Hung up
It
on
looks like we're
something.
good. Okay. Oh, look at there. Oh, yeah! Look at that hook set. That was a championship hook set right there. That was instinct.
Oh, I lost him.
Nope.
Nope, he's still there.
He's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
That was instinct. You
There
didn't
you
need
go.
anybody to coach you on that.
See that?
Yeah.
That's a little wimpy.
Fish number 2, baby. Yeah. All right, so first time is an aberration, second time's a trend.
There you go. There you go. Nice pose.
Give your minnow just a little 6-inch. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at there. Man, he didn't waste any time.
Ooh.
Twitch on the bobber and boom, there's another crappie. Uh-huh. Look
Smaller,
at
isn't he?
No, he's still good size. We got
There
us
you
an
go.
angler here. So once is an aberration, twice is a trend, 3 is a pattern.
There you go.
Bob's on the pattern. We've got crappie, we've got dinner, and we got a new angler. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There you have it. Arkansas has another new angler. Now, we've been talking a lot about live bait in Arkansas's great outdoors. Let's go to the experts at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission on how to care for your live bait while you're fishing.
Hi, my name is Jason Miller. I'm the manager of the Joe Hogan State Fish Hatchery in Lone Oak. Been fishing my entire life. I love to fish, it's how I relax, but more importantly, I like to fish because I like to eat fish. I'm going to tell you a few things that hopefully will help you keep your bait alive, not only alive, but let's keep those bait as healthy as we possibly can. The stronger the bait are, the better chances you've got of catching those fish that you're targeting. So one of the first things that we do when we buy bait from a certified bait dealer, you're probably going to get bait similar to this. You may not get this many, this is a lot of bait, but you're going to get bait in a bag most of the time. So one of the things that we want to try to limit is we want to limit the exposure to heat. So setting this on the concrete on a hot day or something like that is not a good idea. Putting them in the back of the truck and getting to your destination is probably not the best way to do that. You want to try to haul these things as climate controlled as possible. I recommend putting them inside an ice chest with no water and maybe take some frozen water bottles. That way you can kind of cool those fish down while they're in transit. But a lot of people are just using whatever they've got. This is a paint bucket and it's got a bubbler on it. These little battery operated bubblers are great for oxygenating the water over the course of the day. But the problem with that is if you take lake water and then dump the fish straight on the lake water, then you've shocked those fish with different water chemistry, different temperature, and different water quality. So one of the things we want to do is we want to get the fish in this bucket and then slowly acclimate those fish to the water chemistry and the temperature of the lake. So tempering, that's a phrase that we use for doing that. We want to do that as practically as we can. We don't want to spend all day tempering the fish, but it's definitely something we want to do to minimize the stress. If we're using dip nets to get the fish out of the bucket, try not to get 20 or 30 fish every single time that we're dipping out. If we only need 1 or 2, then try to just catch 1 or 2, because every time that we do that, we're knocking the slime coat off the fish, and that's a big stressor. So if we're holding fish for a long period of time, let's say overnight, or we may be fishing for a couple of days, changing that water is really, really important. But then when you start doing that as well, you want to look at maybe using some additives. There's a lot of products out there that you can get at fisheries retailers, aquaculture supply stores that are really good for maintaining the slime coat on the fish and reducing stress. If you don't have access to something like this, I'm sure you've got access to salt. And as long as it's non-iodized, doesn't have any additives, kosher salt's really good. Most people have kosher salt in their house. That's a great way to maintain your slime coat on your fish and reduce stress on them. It doesn't take a lot, so that's something that you can keep with you, keep in your boat, keep in a tackle box. Only a couple of teaspoons per every gallon of water is a good way to reduce the stress on the fish. So that's just that's a few tips that I've got for trying to keep your fish healthy. I hope that you can use some of these, and good luck and see you on the water.
When Arkansas's Great Outdoors returns, we go hiking at Hobbs State Park in northwest Arkansas with a little bit of history. Arkansas's Great Outdoors is brought to you by Bad Boy Mowers, mow with an attitude, by H2O Marine, and by Archer's Advantage.
Where haven't we gone? What hasn't been done? What's still left to be discovered and possible beyond the horizon? How can we continue pushing limits, breaking boundaries, and leading the way? At Bad Boy, it's not just about finding the answers, it's about the pursuit. Bad Boy, mow with an attitude.
Up in northwest Arkansas, right around Beaver Lake, is Hobbs State Park, over 12,000 acres of beautiful scenery.
We're here with Chris Pistol. Tell us what you do.
I'm a park interpreter here at Hobbs State Park. I'm not a park ranger. In Arkansas state parks, a park ranger typically is law enforcement, but an interpreter is what I often call an educator, kind of like a teacher. Everybody can relate to that. And our job is to help interpret or explain the resources that we have in our parks, whether that be the natural resources like the plants and animals, or the historical and cultural resources, because some of our state parks are really focused on that aspect. Now, if you like history and culture, we have two good trails for that. One is the Pigeon Roost Trail. There's some really interesting history to go along with that, but the main one would be the Van Winkle Trail. So Peter Van Winkle settled this area back in the 1850s, and he had a mill here. At one time, it was the largest steam-powered mill in all of Arkansas. Unfortunately, there's not much left of those buildings, but there are some foundations, and there's some great interpretive panels there that will help tell the story of Peter and his family.
Richard Louv wrote that landmark book.
But it's a very simple, easy trail, so it's a good beginning trail. And that's what you need to do with children, I think. Start out slow and easy. Don't overwhelm them with a trail that's too long, too strenuous, especially if they're not used to it yet. Keep it light, keep it fun. You can even make it like a scavenger hunt for them.
Why is it important for people to explore trails that they are already familiar with, that they feel like they already know?
Well, it's really easy to just assume that what's in your backyard, you can see this progression of changes in the trees, in the wildflowers. Every few weeks, you'll find different wildflowers blooming during the growing season. You'll see the changes in the bird life as those migrants come through. You'll see wildlife bring their young out and just experience the whole place as it truly is, and it makes you feel like you have a better understanding or a better sense of that place.
Thanks for watching. Today we learned about stocking ponds and the science and balance needed to create that perfect pond for your fishing. We saw Bob Cahoon become Arkansas's newest angler, and we got hiking tips from Mallory at Bad Boy Mowers. We also got archery and boating tips from Archer's Advantage and H2O Sports and Marine in Sherwood. There's a lot to do and see here in Arkansas, and we'll bring you a piece of it every week right here on Arkansas's Great Outdoors. When Arkansas's Great... a bug just flew in my mouth. A little bit of protein there in the back of the throat.